Yo, what's going on, guys? It's J-Mass, and I'm back again with another dope New England adventure. And serious question, who doesn't love covered bridges? I mean, covered bridges are awesome. They're quaint and beautiful. We have them all over New England, and we get people coming from all over the country just to check out our beautiful covered bridge offerings. And me being a native New Englander myself, I love our covered bridges. They're absolutely beautiful and historic. I'll drive anywhere just to see some beautiful covered bridges. And in my opinion, the state of New Hampshire here in New England is by far the state with the greatest offering of covered bridges. In fact, that's where I am currently. I'm actually here in the northernmost town of New Hampshire, the town of Pittsburgh, which actually has a couple great covered bridges of its own. Although the state of New Hampshire officially lists and administers 54 total covered bridges, there are many more throughout the state, reaching well into the 80s. Of course, the accessibility of these covered bridges varies. While most are open to the public for vehicle or pedestrian traffic, quite a few of New Hampshire's covered bridges are on private property and unavailable. For the sake of this video, we will be focusing on the public ones. Over the course of one weekend, between Saturday and Sunday, I will attempt to visit as many of New Hampshire's historic covered bridges as I possibly can. Why, you may ask? Well, I've always personally felt that New Hampshire has some of the best covered bridges in all of New England, and I've always wanted to highlight some of them here on this channel. Using this special map I made as a resource, which labels a majority of New Hampshire's public covered bridges, we will try to physically visit as many as we can, starting all the way up in the state's northernmost town and working our way down south. Let's see how many we can visit and which towns we end up in. So without further ado, why don't you guys join me as we try to visit as many covered bridges as we possibly can in the span of one weekend here in the state of New Hampshire, starting today on Saturday. Let's get started and see how many we can check out. The very first covered bridge I visited for this challenge was Happy Corner Covered Bridge, one of 3 covered bridges here in Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. This bridge was located in a very quiet part of town. It was pretty calm, and I never saw a single car drive by the whole time I was filming. This covered bridge is rather simple, consisting almost entirely of natural brown wood, and it spans across the rushing waters of Perry Stream, a tributary of the Connecticut River. At 78 feet long, this bridge carries both vehicles and pedestrians, offering some pretty views of the stream and surrounding woods. Although the date of construction is sadly not officially documented or verified, it was likely built sometime between the 1850s and 1860s. The bridge's name, Happy Corner, comes from this era, inspired by a local resident who was often quite happy, singing and dancing and engaging in friendly conversation. Happy Corner would also become the namesake for the neighborhood that occupied the site. Overall, this was a quiet, calm, and serene historic bridge. The next covered bridge I visited was River Road Covered Bridge, also located in Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, only 2 miles away from the previous bridge. Unlike the previous bridge, however, this one is completely closed to vehicle traffic and only open to pedestrians. In fact, there were a few bridge closed signs to signify this, and there is a separate makeshift bridge directly next to it for cars to pass through. At 51 feet long, this is another simple brown wooden bridge that crosses Perry Stream, with many open windows for stunning views of the heavily wooded area. In fact, this bridge is located in a particularly rural section of Pittsburgh, and I also never saw a single car drive by here, enjoying the peaceful serenity. As the name suggests, this covered bridge is named for the road it is built on, River Road, and it was constructed in 1858. Unfortunately, historical accounts and details about this bridge are scarce, and I could not find much else. Still, this was yet another calm and scenic covered bridge here in New Hampshire's northernmost town. Next up, I visited Pittsburg-Clarksville Covered Bridge, the third and final covered bridge here in Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. However, as the name implies, this bridge connects two towns, Pittsburgh and Clarksville. This bridge crosses the mighty Connecticut River, which actually has its source up here in Pittsburgh, in the nearby 4th Connecticut Lake. At 89 feet long, this is the longest bridge I've visited thus far, and it shows, taking some time to walk from end to end. This is yet another pedestrians-only covered bridge, as it is entirely closed to vehicles. It also appears that the Clarksville side of the bridge leads to private property. Only the Pittsburgh side is accessible to the public. Due to its relatively isolated location and inaccessibility to cars, this is another calm, quiet, and peaceful bridge, and I was the only one around while filming. This covered bridge was built in 1876, although it was officially closed to vehicle traffic in 1981 and has remained so ever since. Another fun fact is that this bridge is more commonly referred to as Bacon Road Bridge, named after the road it carries along. This was definitely my favorite bridge of the three up here in Pittsburgh, with some outstanding views and incredible wooden architecture. I traveled about 17 miles south to the next bridge, known as Columbia Covered Bridge. This is also the first covered bridge I visited for this challenge that crosses two states, connecting the towns of Columbia, New Hampshire, and Leamington, Vermont. This is yet another bridge crossing over the Connecticut River, which actually serves as the state boundary between New Hampshire and Vermont from this point on southward. Unlike the previous three bridges, this one receives much more vehicle traffic, although even then, it wasn't frequent. Spanning 146 feet long, and making it now the longest bridge I visited thus far, this bridge has a dark brown facade and a narrow interior. Built in 1912, this covered bridge actually replaced a previous bridge that was destroyed by a fire in 1911. It's also considered one of the last covered bridges built in New Hampshire during the historical heyday of covered bridge construction, before it became antiquated and fell out of fashion. Despite the occasional car here and there, this was another peaceful covered bridge with some stunning views of rural northern New Hampshire and the upper Connecticut River. Located further down south, about 30 miles away, I next visited Stark Covered Bridge in the small town of Stark, New Hampshire. This covered bridge is situated directly in the center of the town's most populated village, serving as a major road connection. Despite this, I did not encounter many cars or people crossing it while filming. This covered bridge spans across a wide section of the mighty Upper Ammonoosuc River, with stellar views of nearby hills and mountains through its windows. This also marks our first non-brown covered bridge. As you can see, this one is entirely painted white. Spanning 138 feet long, this bridge was built sometime between 1857 and 1862 and has a rather storied history. In the early 1890s, the covered bridge was washed away by high waters and had to be relocated by oxen and refurbished. Yet again, the bridge failed in 1946 due to structural sagging and was consequently rebuilt in 1954. This also marks the first covered bridge I visited for this challenge that has designated sidewalks for pedestrians, effectively separating pedestrian and vehicle traffic. This was by far one of the most unique and scenic covered bridges I'd visited thus far, with some excellent architecture to boot. The next covered bridge I visited was Groveton Covered Bridge, located just west of the previous bridge in the neighboring town of Northumberland, New Hampshire. This bridge is named for the town's primary village of Groveton, which it is located in. This also happens to be the first covered bridge of the challenge that I had already visited before, making this my second time checking it out. As you can see, this covered bridge is completely closed to vehicle traffic, only open to pedestrians. There are actually 2 picnic tables and a trash barrel inside as well, which is definitely a first for the challenge. Spanning across the Upper Ammonoosuc River at 126 feet long, this bridge offers great views of the village and surrounding mountains. Built in 1852, This covered bridge used to be a crossing point for vehicle traffic until 1939, when it was bypassed by US Route 3. Sadly, this bridge appears to be in pretty rough shape, with peeling and chipping white paint and sporadic graffiti, as well as general structural wear and tear. I'd love to see this bridge renovated and restored someday, as it truly is a piece of history and deserves to be properly preserved. I headed 10 miles south, and after a quick lunch, I visited Mechanic Street Covered Bridge in the town of Lancaster, New Hampshire. This bridge was located in a quiet suburban neighborhood, and I actually stumbled upon a group of kids playing underneath it while I was exploring the site. Due to its location on a main road, the namesake Mechanic Street, this bridge received a fair amount of vehicle traffic, more so than any other bridge I'd visited thus far. This bridge crosses over rushing rapids of the Israel River. In fact, it's also known as the Israel River Bridge for this very reason. At 94 feet long, this covered bridge was constructed in 1862, replacing another wooden bridge that had once sat here. This also marks the first red-painted covered bridge of the challenge, which I find notable as I've always felt that the red covered bridges were some of New Hampshire's most iconic. I truly enjoyed this bridge, from the gorgeous views of the Israel River flowing beneath it, to the scenic woodlands surrounding it, and, of course, the incredible wooden architecture. The next bridge I visited, Mount Orne Covered Bridge, was just 6 miles away, and also located in the town of Lancaster, New Hampshire. However, this is also the second covered bridge I visited on this challenge that crosses state lines, connecting with the town of Lunenburg, Vermont. Crossing over the state border across the surging Connecticut River, this marks the first covered bridge with no windows inside, completely enclosed within. In fact, the bridge in its entirety is unpainted, with simple, plain brown wood across the exterior. Spanning across the river at 266 feet long, this is by far the longest bridge I visited thus far in the challenge. This bridge was built in 1911, replacing a previous bridge that was destroyed by a flood in 1905. More recently, in 2023, the bridge was damaged after an oversized vehicle crashed into it, requiring significant repairs. Due to its location on a major intersection between two states, this bridge saw much more vehicle traffic than the last few bridges I visited, and due to the lack of windows, I had to walk down by the base of the bridge at the river's edge to witness the surrounding views. Still, despite its simple appearance, this was another classic New England covered bridge. I began driving 30 miles southwest until I reached the next bridge, Bath Covered Bridge, which is one of 3 covered bridges in the town of Bath, New Hampshire. Located directly in the town center, this covered bridge spans the roaring Ammonoosuc River, even crossing a dam and rushing waterfalls. Despite its prominent location, it was not too busy, and I only witnessed a few cars pass through during my visit. This bridge spans a length of 375 feet long, instantly becoming the longest bridge I visited thus far, and taking quite a bit of time to walk from end to end. Although the current iteration of this bridge was built in 1832, it is actually the 5th bridge to be built on this spot. The first bridge was built in 1794, but was destroyed by a flood, prompting a new bridge to be built in 1806. 2 more bridges were ravaged by floods in 1820 and 1826, and a 4th bridge was decimated by a fire in 1830, with the current bridge built just 2 years later to replace it. Ironically, despite the number of times this bridge has been replaced and rebuilt, it currently stands as one of New Hampshire's oldest covered bridges. Overall, it's a beautiful covered bridge with a bright red facade and intricate woodwork inside and out, as well as some stellar views of the river and rushing falls. The next bridge was just 3 miles away from the previous one, also located within the town of Bath, New Hampshire. This bridge, Swiftwater Covered Bridge, is situated in a much more quiet and rural section of town, and I didn't see many cars or pedestrians pass through. This bridge features an unpainted, plain brown wood exterior, although the roof is actually made of corrugated metal. Spanning across the rushing waters of the wild Ammonoosuc River, which is a tributary of the Ammonoosuc River, this bridge towers above rapids and waterfalls, aiding to its name Swiftwater. At 158 feet long, this bridge was constructed in 1849 and is the fourth on the site, replacing 3 bridges that existed prior. The first 2 bridges were constructed in 1810, but both were devastated by floods. The third bridge, built in 1829, lasted until it was dismantled and replaced by the current iteration in 1849. Although the windows inside the bridge are a bit high, they offer incredible views of the rushing water below, and the woodwork and architecture itself is truly something to behold. This is yet another wonderful, serene bridge here in northern New Hampshire. This next bridge would end up being the final covered bridge I would visit on this day, and I truly ended on a high note. This is the Haverhill-Bath Covered Bridge, connecting the 2 towns of Haverhill, New Hampshire, and Bath, New Hampshire. Unlike the previous bridge, this one is situated in a more populated area, beside the village of Woodsville in Haverhill. The bridge crosses over the Ammonoosuc River directly next to the Connecticut River, which it is a tributary of. At 256 feet long, this is another very long covered bridge, as well as a tall one, towering above the rocky, roaring falls beneath it. Interestingly, this bridge is considered to be the oldest surviving covered bridge in New Hampshire, having been built in 1829. Unlike the other bridges in Bath, this is the first and only bridge built on this site, and it has resisted many extreme floods. This is also another covered bridge with a designated pedestrian sidewalk, separating people from the vehicle traffic, although I should note that this bridge is currently closed to all vehicles and is only open to pedestrians. It used to carry New Hampshire Route 135, although it was eventually bypassed by a new bridge. This was truly an amazing covered bridge to end day 1 on, and although the sun was beginning to set and the sky was getting hazy, I was glad that I managed to visit as many covered bridges as I had. This officially marks the end of day 1, with 11 total covered bridges visited. Yo, what's up guys, it's J-Mass again, and it is officially day 2 of trying to see as many covered bridges as we possibly can here in the state of New Hampshire in the span of 1 weekend. It's now Sunday as I film this, and although yesterday we were in northern New Hampshire, today we're actually going to be starting in southern New Hampshire. More specifically, I'm here in the town of Winchester, New Hampshire. Once again, we're going to try to see as many covered bridges as we possibly can in one day. Unfortunately, I don't have as much time today as I did yesterday, so we might not be able to get to as many as we did yesterday, but still, I'm excited to see how many covered bridges we can check out today. As you can see, it is a pretty foggy day today, looking like Silent Hill behind me, but yeah, anyways, let's see how it goes. We're going to continue onward, try to see as many covered bridges as we can, this time in southern New Hampshire. Starting off strong, the first covered bridge I visited on this day was Ashuelot Covered Bridge, located in the village of Ashuelot, within the town of Winchester, New Hampshire. Situated directly in the center of the village, this bridge saw a decent amount of vehicle traffic, but even then, it was infrequent. The bridge was surrounded by a quiet suburban neighborhood on both sides, and it spans across the rushing waters of the Ashuelot River, a tributary of the Connecticut River. At 174 feet long, this bridge is notable for its brightly colored exterior, with sharp white walls and a vibrant red roof, a heavy contrast from previous covered bridges we've seen. This bridge was built in 1864, replacing a previous bridge that was built on the same site. Interestingly, this newer iteration incorporated some portions of the old bridge in its construction. Yet again, we have another example of a covered bridge with 2 pedestrian sidewalks, allowing people to safely walk across it. With its beautiful woodwork and vibrant, colorful facade, this is easily one of my favorite bridges I've visited thus far. Next up, I visited Coombs Covered Bridge, also located in the town of Winchester, New Hampshire. Unlike the previous one, this covered bridge is located in a much more quiet part of town, and I never saw a single car drive by the whole time I was visiting. This covered bridge also contrasts with the previous one in that it is more simple and plain, with unpainted brown wood making up its aesthetic. At 118 feet long, this bridge also spans across the Ashuelot River, although there are no windows inside and it is completely enclosed. Built in 1843, this bridge is named for Anthony Coombs Jr., the owner of the bridge, and a farmer who owned a homestead nearby. Despite its overall simplicity, this is another quaint covered bridge in a calm and peaceful neighborhood. Although there are sadly no windows inside the bridge, you can still get great views of the river from the outside of each entrance. The next bridge I visited was just a mile and a half northeast, known as Slate Covered Bridge, one of 4 covered bridges in the town of Swanzey, New Hampshire. Much like the previous one, this bridge is also located in a calm and quiet neighborhood, and I only ever saw a handful of cars pass through. Crossing over the Ashuelot River once again, this is another iconic red-painted bridge, although it does not have any windows inside, encapsulated within a lattice truss structure. At 142 feet long, this is one of the newest bridges I visited on this challenge, as it was built in 2001. This was to replace the previous bridge, originally built in 1862, which had been destroyed by a devastating fire in 1993. Although this bridge does not have any windows inside, you can still see some stunning views of the river and woodlands from each entrance, and the quaint, red-painted beauty is truly a sight to behold. Just 2 miles north up the road, I visited West Swanzey Covered Bridge, also located in Swanzey, New Hampshire. This bridge is also commonly referred to as Thompson Bridge, and the two names are often used interchangeably. I must say, this was by far the most difficult covered bridge to film. Due to the bridge's position on a very busy road, specifically Main Street, there was a constant influx of cars passing through that felt never-ending. This was handily one of the busiest covered bridges I visited during the challenge, and I had to wait for pockets of quietness between cars to capture quality footage. Regardless of the traffic, this is yet another beautiful red covered bridge here in Swanzey, complete with another separate sidewalk for safe accessibility to pedestrians. This bridge, which crosses over the Ashuelot River, spans a length of 151 feet long. Built in 1832, this bridge nearly left New Hampshire for a new state at the request of a famous historical figure. In 1930, Henry Ford tried to purchase the bridge and transport it to his museum in Dearborn, Michigan, but the local town government in Swanzey refused his offer, allowing it to remain in place. This is a gorgeous bridge with stunning, vibrant red paint and intricate woodwork, as well as excellent views of the Ashuelot River roaring beneath it. Next up, I visited Carlton Covered Bridge, the third and final covered bridge I would visit here in Swanzey, New Hampshire. In comparison to the previous 2 bridges, this one is located in a much more quiet and rural part of town, with minimal vehicle traffic along Carlton Road, the road it is named after. Spanning across the scenic South Branch Ashuelot River, this covered bridge is 67 feet long, being one of the shorter bridges I've covered thus far. It's also another example of Swanzey's iconic bright red covered bridges, but this one is entirely painted red, save for the shingled roof. Built in 1869, this bridge replaced a previous bridge that was likely built in 1789. This bridge was built by local barn builders, which is apparent due to the bridge's striking similarities to the design of barns, based on its Queensport truss construction. With some gorgeous views of the river and surrounding forest, this is yet another quaint and peaceful New Hampshire covered bridge. After heading 32 miles east, I arrived at the Hancock-Greenfield covered bridge, which connects the namesake towns of Hancock, New Hampshire and Greenfield, New Hampshire. This is yet another simple and plain, unpainted brown covered bridge, albeit still a quaint New England classic. It saw a decent bit of traffic as well, but nothing substantial. This bridge crosses the serene Contoocook River, right by its entrance into nearby Powder Mill Pond. Once again, however, this bridge has no windows, meaning no way to view the stunning scenery outside from within the confines of the structure. At 87 feet long, this bridge has the distinction of being the first wooden covered bridge in New England built with modern engineering techniques, constructed in 1937. It replaced a bridge that had previously sat here, which was built in 1852 and destroyed by a flood in 1936. Unlike many of the other bridges I visited that connect two different towns, this bridge actually has town signs within its interior, letting you know which side of the town border you're standing on. All in all, this was yet another picturesque covered bridge with some incredible scenery and design. Last but not least, I ended off the entire challenge with a unique covered bridge, unlike any other I'd visited thus far. My final covered bridge would be the Nissitissit covered bridge in the town of Brookline, New Hampshire. Unlike all of the previous covered bridges I explored during this journey, this specific bridge was never intended for cars. It is a purely pedestrian bridge, only built for walking. It's incorporated within a network of hiking trails, and the bridge itself crosses the namesake Nissitissit River, providing hikers with an easy way to navigate across. At 121 feet long, this is a very long pedestrian bridge, offering stellar views of the rushing rocky waters down below. This is also by far the newest bridge I'd visited, built in 2003, although it had been built off of a pre-existing bridge acquired in 2001. Due to this bridge being located in a forest amid hiking trails, it is easy to walk down to the riverbed and get even better close-up views of the structure and supports. Also, I do want to give a quick shout out to this random bridge across the street. It's much smaller than the Nissitissit covered bridge and doesn't really seem to have a genuine reason to exist, but it's cute and I like it. Anyways, that's it for day 2, with 7 total covered bridges visited.
Hey, thank you guys for joining me. I've been J-Mass as always, and this has been another dope New England adventure. And in yet another wild J-Mass challenge video, we visited as many covered bridges as we possibly could here in the state of New Hampshire in the span of just one weekend. And it really was a wild challenge. We saw a lot of covered bridges, in fact 18 total, and I had a lot of fun checking them all out. Now granted, we barely scratched the surface with New Hampshire covered bridges. New Hampshire has a lot of covered bridges within the state, and I only checked out a portion of them. There are a lot that I left out of this video. But even the ones I checked out were absolutely phenomenal. If you guys ever find your way up here to New Hampshire, definitely check out some of the covered bridges I explored in this video, and definitely check out the ones that I didn't film in this video. Again, we only checked out 18 covered bridges, but there are a lot in New Hampshire, a lot that I left out just because I didn't have time to visit them or explore them. And we only really checked out a handful of regions as well in New Hampshire. We mostly stuck to the western side of New Hampshire, but there are a lot of covered bridges in some regions I didn't really get to film, especially the White Mountains of New Hampshire. I never really got around over there, but some of my favorite covered bridges here in New Hampshire are actually in the White Mountains, specifically in the eastern region. But again, just making the point, there are a lot of covered bridges that I didn't get a chance to film in this video. But why don't we take a look at the logistics of this challenge? And as I mentioned previously, we ended up visiting a total of 18 covered bridges in the state of New Hampshire in the span of one weekend. That is 11 covered bridges yesterday on Saturday and 7 covered bridges today on Sunday. And I just kind of want to walk through the journey itself and the visitation of these covered bridges. For one, I didn't reach as many covered bridges today as I'd hoped, and that's primarily just because I just don't have as much time to film today. Unfortunately, I do have an event I have to get to later, so I was much lower on time today to film, but still, 7 covered bridges is nothing to scoff at. That's still a pretty solid list right there. So even though we didn't reach as many as we did yesterday with 11 total, 7 total covered bridges, still pretty solid, rounding it out to a nice 18 total covered bridges over the course of Saturday and Sunday. The other thing I want to mention is that there were quite a few covered bridges I visited off camera with the intent of including them in this video and filming them, but they just didn't work out for various reasons and I had to scrap them. One that comes to mind is the Riverwalk covered bridge in Littleton, New Hampshire. I'd planned on filming that. I actually got to it, but the problem was Littleton, New Hampshire was completely mobbed and crowded with tons of people. It seemed like there was some sort of Halloween event going on, so a lot of the streets were closed off, blocked off. There were like literal crowds of people wandering around the town, and that included the bridge. The bridge was completely packed with people. I just felt like I wasn't able to get any quality footage there. It was kind of a pain to get any good video, so I ended up just scrapping it. I said, screw it, I'm not filming here. So I moved on from that one, even though I really was looking forward to filming the Riverwalk covered bridge. Another one that I wasn't able to film for a different reason was actually the Sawyer's Crossing covered bridge in Swanzey. That's right, one of many Swanzey covered bridges we filmed today. I did get there as well, but that one was actually situated on a main road. So there was so much traffic on that covered bridge. Like any single time I had a moment to film the bridge without any cars passing through, a car ended up coming there. It was way too busy. I just couldn't get any quality footage without cars disrupting the footage, so I ended up scrapping that as well. And the last one was, I forget the name of it, I'll include it below, but it was in Merrimack, New Hampshire. I wanted to film a covered bridge there, but it was really small, not great for getting good footage. And there was a neighbor next door who was watching me the entire time. He had his dogs there barking, and I was like, I'm not dealing with this right now. So I ended up going to the most recent one in Brookline, New Hampshire. But that's only 3 covered bridges I got to, but wasn't able to film. So if you want to be technical about it, I did visit another 3 covered bridges off camera. So technically speaking, I did visit 21 covered bridges, but I only filmed 18 of them. I'm not counting the 3 I filmed, but if you want to, I did technically visit 21 covered bridges. Anyways, guys, that's going to be about it for this video and for this challenge. If you guys love traveling across New England, exploring all of its charming oddities, and doing strange challenges just like this one, well, I'm always doing that on this channel. I love traveling across New England and exploring all it has to offer. I have a lot of videos just like this on my channel and many more to come, so feel free to subscribe to the channel, check out my previous videos. I also want to give a shout out to all my channel members. You can see them all right here. You guys are awesome. And I'd love it if you too, viewer of this video, considered becoming a channel member as well. You'd be supporting me and the channel directly, and I truly appreciate it. Or you can follow me on Instagram at JMassOfficial. That's at JMassOfficial. But I've been JMass as always, yet another New England challenge video. I had a lot of fun doing this. I'm sure I'll do many more in the future, and honestly, maybe another covered bridge video as well. I had a lot of fun checking out these covered bridges. Of course, New Hampshire's not the only state with them. You got Vermont, Maine, I think Rhode Island, and Connecticut. You know, every New England state has covered bridges, but I always found the ones in New Hampshire particularly charming. And again, there's quite a few I didn't cover, so maybe I'll do those in a separate video. Who knows? But anyways, I'll catch you guys later, and I'm gonna go head home and start editing. See ya.